Hey guys, how's it going? In this series of videos, we're going to show you how to install FilmAf on your own computer. The process to install it on a server is somewhat similar. The security settings would be a little bit different and you're going to have different considerations, but let's get started. So the site was originally called DVDAF. It was created in 1999 and it was created in Linux. So at the time it was Red Hat. And over time it was moved on to different distributions, and from Red Hat it went to different versions and different iterations of CentOS. But today, since we're going to be doing this as if you were like a home user, we're going to use Ubuntu. And the way to get it installed is, regardless of what your computer looks like, whether it's a PC running Windows or whether it's a Mac, or even if it's a Linux machine itself, the way you are likely to install this is using a technology called virtualization that enables you to have a little computer inside of your computer, right? And this little computer you're gonna put inside your bigger computer, it can run any operating system that you want. So in my case, I'm obviously, you can see from the background, I'm running Windows, and I'm gonna use a piece of software called VirtualBox by Oracle that creates that little computer inside your bigger computer, right? So I'm not going to go over how to install VirtualBox. That's relatively straightforward. You can just Google VirtualBox and it takes you 5-10 minutes to install. So let's create an image or a virtual machine for Ubuntu. So the first thing, before we create the image, what we would have to do is we would have to go to Ubuntu, obviously, right? And when you get here, we are going to download, and I'm going to choose to download the desktop version because, again, I'm assuming that you're doing this as a home user. If you're doing it as a server hosting someplace, then you're going to do this differently. So you go ahead. Go to your download Ubuntu desktop, you download it, and it is going to download an ISO file. You can see over here, you see the progress indicator. I'm going to cancel out because I already have it downloaded here on my desktop. So you can see it's Ubuntu 20.04.1 desktop AMD64 ISO. And regardless of whether your computer is a Mac or a Windows, it doesn't really matter. You would download the same thing because, let me get out of here, because this VirtualBox software from Oracle will abstract what's called your your host operating system, and so that you can install anything else in your virtual machine. So to create a virtual machine, you go here, say new, and we're going to call it FilmAf on Ubuntu. And VirtualBox VMs in the D drive is where I keep my VMs. Because of the name that I'm giving to it, it knows that it's a Linux operating system that's going to be installed, and it is going to be a 64-bit one. You go to next. I'm going to assign 4 gigs of memory to it. You can assign probably 2 would be the bare minimum. You're probably not going to need more than 4. You can change all of this afterwards. You're not married to these choices. We're going to create a virtual disk, and there's going to be a VDI. And the great things about one of the great things about this virtualization technology is that you can back up the state of your entire machine. So even if you were creating a machine to run Windows, for example, you could potentially install a piece of software on your virtual machine, and you're not happy with it. Instead of having that nightmarish installation process that you go through Windows, you just delete that virtual machine and restore it from the backup, and it's like fresh new. So it's great even for things like this installation. If you screw up, as long as you have a backup, you can go back to what it was before. without side effects. All right, so we're going to create a disk image. It's going to be dynamically allocated, which means you're going to set a limit for how big it can get, but you're only going to use the disk space that is actually needed, right? So we are going to set up a limit that's quite high because expanding this afterwards is quite a pain in the ass. So let's say 400 gigs. And at the end of this, I don't know how much space we're going to use. So at the end of this process, we'll see whether we needed 200 gigs or we needed 300 gigs or whatever. But we're going to start with 400 because, again, at this point, this is just a number. It's not actually using that disk space. So we say create. And this is almost ready to get installed. So we're going to, a few more settings that we have to touch. I'm going to settings under display. In video memory, you're going to run all the way up to whatever that is. And I'm going to enable 3D acceleration. And under system, under processor, I'm going to choose 2 CPUs. 2 CPUs would be probably sufficient for when you are running it day to day. Not to you browsing the site or whatever. But because we're going to be doing some compilation and some stuff, I'm going to bump that up just for the installation process. I'm going to give it 8 processors. Okay, and the other thing in storage. Okay. So the way this works is all of these things here on the side, they are like fake things, right? So this is a fake display, this is fake storage. Those, what we were seeing like was a fake disk and the fake CPU, and that's what that is the interface by which the virtual machine is going to relate to the real world, is through these choices. So when I come here under storage, you see that there is this image of this disk. This would be either a DVD drive or a fake DVD drive or a fake CD drive. And the way you use this, you can say, okay, let's select that fake DVD drive, and I'm going to put in a disk. And that disk will be this guy over here. So you actually would have to navigate. So we go navigate, go to, where's my desktop? It's my desktop, and it is somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. Should I put in a, oh, here you go. So this would have been the equivalent of you getting that ISO file, burning on a DVD, and putting that DVD into a disk drive, which is, nobody does it anymore. But you can also do that with the equivalent of a USB drive, but this is the same idea. All right, so we made those changes. We're going to say OK, and then we're going to start. And what start is like if you have pressed the on button on your computer. And it went to the other monitor, and it says select a startup disk. So I guess that's the equivalent of when you boot the system. It you know, the computer says you want to boot from where again, and I'm going to select the Ubuntu thing here, and I'm going to select start, and what is going on? Okay, I'm going to move here so that you can see it. All right, so this is the little computer inside your big computer, and it should no bottom. Oh, that didn't go well. Let me close this. Power off the machine. I chose something wrong. Let me try it again. Okay, start. No, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to start recording this again. Power off the machine. All right. So that's the type of thing that you're gonna run into as you. So I'm gonna. remove, and I'm going to choose a disk file. I'm going to select that guy again because I probably did something wrong, and I'm going to select that Ubuntu desktop. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to start the machine again, and all right, looks better. All right, so I don't know what I did wrong, but now we're cooking with gas. I'm going to unclick these guys. So what these messages that I'm unclicking say is that there's the VM may capture the mouse, meaning if I click inside the VM, the mouse will be, I wouldn't be able to get the mouse out of this black rectangle or square, whatever that is. And the way to get out of that square is over here at the bottom. You say right control is to press the right control key. So if you ever get stuck here and you can't get your mouse out, press whatever key it says at the bottom of the screen over here. Let me minimize this, it's less confusing. Right, so right now what's happening is that your little computer inside your bigger computer is booting up and loading the Ubuntu installation disk, that fake ISO that you insert into the fake disk drive. And it comes with music. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to install Ubuntu. And it's English, English, continue. And we're going to go for normal installation. And we're going to download updates as we're installing. Again, if you were doing this on a more hardcore type thing, that you wanted a server that would have this or that, then you would you'd customize this. But for our purposes, this is fine. Continue. Okay. So here we're selecting the installation type. This is the option that we want, erase and install Ubuntu. But if you had to mess around with partitions, you would choose something else and you would go continue, and over here you would have the disk. As a matter of fact, over here you can see 400 gigs. This is that fake disk we asked for it to be allocated, right? So it has this at this point is a number. It's not how much disk space it's consuming. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you that later once the VM is up and running. So over here, we're going to select erase disk and install Ubuntu. Install now. Yada yada, continue. And this is where we are. Your name. Okay. So, I think I mentioned that the website was created in 1999. And at that point, it was called DVD Aficionado as opposed to Film Aficionado because DVD was the thing back then, right? They were a new thing. So the ID that the site uses to run, it's DVDAF. And eventually when Blu-rays came out, we changed the name of the site from DVDAF to Film Aficionado or FilmAf. Sorry, yes, that's right. Computer's name. We're going to use core, which is going to be the name of this machine that I'm creating. And I'm going to use filmaf.edu. And the reason I'm using edu is because we're going to use a trick where within my home network or within my computer, I'm going to hard code that anytime somebody, a browser or something, wants to go to filmaf.edu, it's going to come to this virtual machine as opposed to out to the internet. So I don't want to use .com because, you know, who knows, maybe in the future something is going to exist in filmaf.com and you might want to go there. So we're going to use edu. And the username is going to be that's good. And for the installation purposes, I'm going to just choose an easy password to remember. And if you were doing this installation for real, you would pick a proper password. And you would also require let's leave this on, which is, you know, if the computer goes to sleep or something, I'm required to type in the password again. Continue. And now it is going to install. So when the site was created, the popular distribution was Red Hat. And even if you were hosting this at pretty much anywhere, any of these, I think, who was the first site that I used? I think it was Rack Shack was the first provider that I used. Anyway, anywhere that you would host these sites at the time, most of them had Red Hat available. And over time that has changed. It went from Red Hat to CentOS, and I'm not sure what the details were behind that. But Red Hat became more of an enterprise type distribution, and CentOS became what was used by everybody else. And I'm not sure how it is nowadays, but in this case we're using Ubuntu. And all of these distributions, they use the same or close to the same Linux kernel, but everything else besides the kernel, they arrange it differently. So they it's like a car. You can put the same engine in an SUV and on a sedan, and maybe not, but you get the idea. And you end up with a totally different car, and that's what the distributions are. So anyway, way back when, we used to use Red Hat and then CentOS, and this is the first time that we actually install it in Ubuntu, and we run into a lot of problems because, like I said, the environment's changed, and it's a different distribution. So the things with the distributions, they put things in different places. So it's a process to change from one distribution to another. Now, something that's kind of interesting, like when I first put the site together, which again over 20 years ago, there was broadband. Broadband was really DSL. You guys are going to have to Google that because I don't think anybody remembers what that is. But anyway, so what happened was that it was cheaper for me to have a DSL line coming to my apartment in New York and having the server in my living room than to actually have the site hosted some other place. And so that's for those that joined the site in the early 2000s. You guys had your collection in my living room, and so it's funny. At one point, we were picked up by the New York Times, and they run a piece of news about this phenomena at the time, which was people buying DVDs and having these huge collections. There are many people with collections of hundreds, if not thousands, of titles. Oh, okay, the installation is complete. Let's restart. Again, this is restarting the VM, the little computer inside your larger computer, right? So, and so the New York Times run this piece, and they interviewed a couple of FilmAf members, and it was a very nice piece. I still have that print someplace, and we got a lot of hits on the website. And so at the time I used to work for one of the banks in New York, and when I realized that things were happening, it started happening early in the morning before I went to work, I called work and I took a personal day off, and I spent the day rebooting the server. Eventually press enter. All right, So eventually we move it to a proper site, hosting site, which I could be skipping one, but I think it was Rack Shack or something else. It was a similar name, and a lot of consolidation in that industry, and over the years we end up hosting with 2 or 3 different companies, and in the last few years that I was associated with the site, it ran on the IBM cloud. And when Sam took over the site, he had a different hosting company in the UK. But throughout this period, we always, after we left Red Hat behind, we always used CentOS, because it's a pain in the ass to move from one distribution to another. All right, so password. All right, so here we go. We installed Ubuntu on our VM. And online accounts, skip. Live patch, not now. Help improve, yes. Send the info to the folks that build this stuff. And privacy, we do not want location services for this machine. So, and that is it. So right now you have a fresh version of Ubuntu on your system. And let's take a look. Let's take a look at, remember when give me a second here and bring it up. The drive. VirtualBoxes. And I'm going to bring this to this window if I can drag it. Here we go. So these are the different VMs that I have, and this is the one that we just created. So you can see this is my D drive in VirtualBox VMs. And you can see over here in FilmAf on Ubuntu that right now that big disk that we said can grow to be up to 400 gigs, it's taking 8 gigs. Right? And if I were to get this directory and back it up someplace or make a copy of that someplace and put it aside, and if we were to screw up this installation, which we are not going to do, if we were to screw up this installation, you would be able to just bring that directory back onto here, and your machine would be just in the state that it is now. The only thing that I would say is that if you're doing this, make sure you shut down your machine before you take that copy, because I don't know what happens if you don't. All right, so Ubuntu wants to update stuff, so we're going to let it update stuff. And it has this, you can see over here, like it has this fake disk, and you see the blinking thingy? That's the equivalent of your computer, the blinking thingy that says that the computer is accessing your hard drive. So that's quite kind of neat. And over here, obviously, it's the network, so that's network access. Now, when you go down here, someplace, here we go. No, that's a software updater. Oh, I think it's not here. There is something called system something. Come on. Oh, system set. Oh, there you go. Resources. So over here you can see it's another way to see how your computer is busy, or if it is busy, because you can see that right now it's accessing the network. It's called system monitor in Ubuntu. It hasn't changed in years that I'm aware of. So over here you can see the network access and the CPU utilization. Yeah, so you can see that it downloaded a bunch of stuff and now it's installing it. And you can also see that it's not really multi-threaded, because you can only this blue line, and now this amber line and the flip-flops. There is some stuff happening in the background. But these are the packages that had been downloaded over here and now are being installed, which is kind of neat. And over here in the software updater, I learned this in the other video, you have the progress bar, obviously. But it's kind of hidden because if you don't like, normally it shows like this, and you have to scroll down and bring it up in order to see. So the other time that I recorded this video, I had no clue as to what was going on, whether the update was done or not, because I couldn't find this. Okay. So when I do these server installations, I keep a record of all the commands, and that serves as a starting point for the next time I do it. So this is where we are, right? So this is that record, and we're going to include this in the, or an updated version of this probably by the time we're done, in the package that will have the website, so that it's easier for you guys to follow. So right now we're in step 1.1, which is create the Ubuntu VM. It says when prompted for username, use the VDAF. So that's it. And Ubuntu has finished updating, just like the Windows update, and is asking to be restarted. So we're restarting it. So this is like your little computer inside your bigger computer booting. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install guest services. Now, guest services is a very, I guess I would say important, because without it, it's a pain to use this virtual machine. So what guest services, it probably does other things, but that I'm aware of, what it does, it allows you to resize this window, and as you resize this window, the desktop of the underlying little computer inside is going to get bigger or smaller, corresponding to the size of the window that you do. So that's helpful. The other thing, it allows the clipboard to be shared between your host operating system, which is Windows in this case, and the guest operating system, which in this case is Ubuntu. And it also allows you to create a shared drive. So what I do is I keep over here in my D drive, I keep the VM share, and this folder is seen by the host computer, which is my Windows, as well as the VM, which is the guest OS, right? So I can move files between the guest and the host through this shared drive, which sometimes is easier than other ways, sometimes. All right, so now that's what we're going to do. We're going to install the guest services. So you come here in the devices, and you say insert guest additions city image. You know, remember when we talked about that, that this is like a fake CD drive, and it's like you make believe that you inserted a CD in that drive. So that's what just happened. And then Ubuntu is saying, hey, somebody inserted something in that drive, what you want to do? And we're going to say run. And asking for the password, authenticate. And this goes by very quickly. And that's it. It installed it. So right now what we're going to do, if I'm going to show you what the difference is, maybe, or embarrass myself, we'll see. All right, so you see that I resized this box, and my little computer is still the same size over here in the middle, no matter how big I make this box or how small I make this box. You know, it's the little computer is still the same size. So the guest services, what we'll do is allow these things to be passed along and behave as one would expect. So I'm going to power off the machine, and when we boot again, which we do it from here, it should work. Boom, boom, boom. I should have created the shared folder. Oh well. I guess I'm not reading ahead. Let's move this out of the way so it's less cluttered. Anytime now. Anytime. You know what? I'm gonna, like I said, I should have shut down this and inserted the, I'm gonna go in and insert the, create the, what you call, share drive, share folder. So, shared folder, you come here and click on this plus sign, and folder path, other, go find it. That's gonna be the, so over here I went and I found it's, I'm gonna put in the D drive under VM share. Select folder. You can make it read-only, but the whole point that we want to do is we want to exchange files, so obviously read-only would not help. And I'm going to set auto mount, because next time it boots, it will be there. Mounting point, don't worry about that, leave it blank. Okay. Okay. And now, when we put this machine, we should have a share if everything works. Oops. Excellent. Anytime. Anytime. There we go. Okay, let's see if yeah, see? It starts to, you see it now, the smaller computer, the little computer, as I drag the window, I made it bigger. And the other thing we want to do is share the clipboard. We want to make it bi-directional, meaning I can copy and paste from here to here, and sorry, from the guest to the host, meaning from Ubuntu to Windows, and the other way around from Windows to Ubuntu, which is quite handy. So now, if I go here, you can see my share, but I don't have rights to it. And the reason why I don't have rights to it is because that's the way it works. I try to be helpful. All right, so I'm gonna open a terminal here. And you can do a sudo, oops, sudo, this guy. Copy. And what we're doing here is we adding our user, which is DVDAF, to a group, which is VBoxSF, which is the owner of this share. And the reason why I know that is because I Googled it. And this is the password for DVDAF. Okay. And now we reboot. And you do have to reboot because I don't know why, but that's it, you have to do. So now next time the machine comes up, if we did everything right, you should be able to access that shared folder. All right, anytime now. Anytime. Come on, quick, quick. So the site was written in PHP, and I I don't remember, like the very first site was probably all written in PHP. Oh, we'll get back to that later when we have some more downtime. Right, so now the other thing we're gonna do is when I open this terminal, you can see that the prompt is nice. You have this green here saying who I am, I'm DVDAF, where I am, the machine name is core, and the folder which is my home directory, and thus the tilde. So if I were to go to documents, for example, oops, what's going on? Tab. You can see that over here tells me, okay, you are the VDAF, you are the machine name is core, and you are the folder home documents, right? The headache here is when we become root. Over here I'm going to do sudo -s, and -s is an abbreviation for shell. So effectively, what we done here is I open the shell as if I were root. Now this is not colored, which is a pain in the ass, because when you have a lot of text, it's difficult to figure out where your command was, and you scroll back, scroll forward, and it's very hard to find yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this file so that we add a little bit of color, similar to what we have when we are DVDAF, but when we are root. Similar but different. And make this bigger. Okay, and I'm going to add this piece of code. Copy. Come here. Go at the end and oops, undo. Oh. Yes, undo. Oh crap. Alright. I'm sorry. Before we do this, what I'll do is I'm gonna do an apt-get vim invalid. What invalid? Oh, install vim, sorry. There we go. And yes. And you can use whatever editor you want. I use VI or Vim because that's what I use. And it's all color coded. And it behaves as I expect it to behave. I'm going to copy this guy. I'm going to paste here. Copy. Why am I not able to paste? Devices. Bidirectional. Oops. Come here. Stop helping me. Copy. Why am I not able to paste? Excitement. Okay, let's bring in Notepad. Paste. Is it in the clipboard? Yes, it is. Why am I not able to paste it here? Why is it read-only? Who am I? I am root. Why am I in trouble? Paste. I do not know why it was read-only. And it's missing something here. It's missing a phi. And don't ask me why it starts with if and ends with phi, because that is life. Copy, right next, button, paste, right next, button, paste, next, that's the last, quit. So we added those 4 files, and now when I exit here, let me see if, oops, not here, come on, stop helping me. Okay, when I exit here, then I sudo again, there you go, you can see that my root prompt has changed and it's red as opposed to green. And still says where I am and so forth. So it's turns out to be very patriotic if you are American or French. Anyway, All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to edit hosts. And what we're looking to do here is, I'm going to comment this out. What we're looking to do here is, I remember when I said that we're going to hard code the, I haven't gone through this yet, but we're going to hard code these names like www.filmaf.edu to this VM, and these entries, ashes used to be my handle at FilmAf. So these entries will allow me to use Firefox within the VM and just test things. So trust me, you need them. And but what we didn't see, so I'm gonna restart the network manager. Oh, come on. I usually do this with a different software. Anyway, network manager, restart, and that should have picked up those changes from etc hosts. Now the other thing that we need to do is, I forgot to say here, over here, install services, we should say, oops, we should also say create network card for host access. Can't spell. Okay, let me save this sucker. So what we need to do, what I want to do here is right now, the VM, they come with a bunch of settings that emphasize security. So right now, the connection, the network connection that this VM has is only to the outside world.
I'm not sure.
Oh, Alexa is coming up for some reason. So the connection that I have to the internet is only to the outside world. Sorry, a network connection that I have is only to the outside world. It doesn't have a connection to the rest of my local network, at least not to the Windows machine. So in order to create that connection, I have to create an adapter. Remember, and I'll show you in a second. So let me close the terminal. I'm going to shut down the machine again. And in, what is this called? In the VirtualBox thingy, we're going to go to settings, and in network, we're going to go to it. So this is the NAT adapter, which is the one that gets it from the machine to the out. That's how we download the packages and stuff. We're going to create a new adapter, which is 2. We're going to enable it, and it's going to be a host-only adapter. And we're going to say OK. I'm going to start this box. So this would create a connection between the little computer and the big computer. So the little VM running Ubuntu and the host machine, which is my Windows machine. It could be a Mac, the host machine. It doesn't really matter. And close it. Cancel this. Just want a little bit of room here. Lift this guy over here. Gonna minimize this guy. Okay. So we're saying that I think the first iteration of the site was written in PHP. I'll never tell that story. Here we go. And now let's come on. And over here we're gonna come and go to our wired settings. And here are the 2 network cards, fake network cards. One, I think this first one is the NAT. And let's see, yeah, it is, because you can see from this IP address 10.02.15. That is the, well, I just know it is. Don't ask me how, because I wouldn't be able to explain. And this 192.168.56.103, this is the new card that I just created, right? So this is picking up this address dynamically through the DNS, and what we want to do is we want that address to be static. So I'm gonna come here to IPv4, go to manual, and I'm gonna paste it here, and it's gonna be, instead of 103, I'm gonna make this 4. And usually the addresses below 100 are static and above 100 are dynamic. So I want this to be static because I want it always to remain the same. Again, because in the host machine, we're going to hard code that this particular address here is filmaf.edu. So the NAT mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. And you don't need a gateway, that's all you need. Apply. And let's close this, and you can come here and you turn off that adapter, and you go and you turn on that adapter. And now when I go to my Windows CMD, enter, when I come here, I should be able to ping, not pung, ping, and that address .4, and voila. Okay, so now this is my Windows host. Might as well be my Mac host or whatever I want, and is able to reach this machine here, which is the .4 we just changed. We're good with this. We're good with this. And now we're gonna go and install packages. So at this point, what have we accomplished? We installed Ubuntu in a virtual machine, which is a small computer inside your larger computer. We have the host computer, which is the Windows communicating with the guest, which is Ubuntu. We installed through this particular IP address. We installed the the guest services that enables you to go back and forth with the mouse and the clipboard and all that good stuff. And we create a share drive to be able to pass information along more easily between the host and the guest OSs, right? And we did some customization with prompts. In the next video, let's see what we're doing. We're gonna start the installation. So at this point, what you have is a generic Ubuntu installation here that you could use for anything you want. And what we're gonna do next is to get the packages that will allow you to run Apache, MySQL, and maybe depending on how the time goes, we're gonna also compile PHP from scratch. And in the next video, I'll go over why is it that we need to compile it from scratch. Catch you guys later. Bye.